by my TV. Hanging with diasporans is a bold and interactive program where diasporans ask important questions, share real experiences, discuss governance, culture, migration, family, business, and practical solutions for a better society.
Hi there, welcome to Hanging with Diasporans, a program where we bring the voices, experiences, and concerns of Nigerians in diasporans to the center of important conversation, from immigration and passports to healthcare, family, identity, opportunities, and life abroad. We ask the questions that matter to Nigerians wherever they live, while also exploring the connections between the diaspora and home. I am Fola Jogun Akinlami, and today we're turning our attention to a subject that affects millions of people, yet remains surrounded by stigma, silence, and enormous financial pressure: infertility. But before we go there, I'd like to take us back to last week. Yes, we spoke and they responded. Last week, we discussed the Nigerian passport renewal for diasporans, the challenges, and the way forward. We especially appreciate the Honorable Minister of Interior, Dr. Olubumi Tunji-Ojo, for his proactive response and commitment to improving passport services for Nigerians in diaspora. And I'll let you know right now that they now have contact address and emails. And their email is passport.london@nigerianimmigration.gov.ng. Passport.london at nigerianimmigration.gov.ng. And WhatsApp only this number, +234 916 087 8000. We spoke, they responded. They are listening, and so should you. And moving on to this week's topic, and we'll be exploring the topic from Europe to Africa, navigating infertility on a budget. And here's the big issue, that is the reason why we're discussing this topic. The desire to have a child is a powerful one, but unfortunately, not everyone can conceive without medical assistance. For many Nigerians, infertility is more than just a medical challenge. It can carry emotional pain, cultural expectation, family pressure, and increasingly a significant financial burden. For Nigerians living in diaspora, this is another question. Should they seek treatment from where they live, or could they travel back to Nigeria and provide more accessible or affordable options? Today on Hanging Out with Diasporans, we're looking beyond the stigma and the pressure. We're asking the practical question: what causes infertility? When should couples seek help? What treatments are available? This and many more. And joining us on this segment is Dr. Ademola Ayodele, a consultant obstetrician, gynecologist, and a fertility specialist in Lagos, Nigeria. Also joining us is Dr. Joel Akande. Dr. Joel Akande is a Nigerian medical doctor and a fertility specialist with training in obstetrics and gynecology and reproductive endocrinology. He trained at the College of Medicine, University of Lagos, and subsequently specialized in reproductive endocrinology at the University of Geneva, Switzerland.
Right for hanging with the diasporans on Fola Yoga Lekilami TV. Hanging with the diasporans, a bold and interactive program where diasporans.
Infertility is often discussed as a private family matter, yet it affects millions of couples. How significant is the problem among Nigerians today? I'm asking both of you, so I'll appreciate if Dr. Joel will go first.
Infertility, let's begin from the rudimentary element of what is infertility. And if we are going to take the World Health Organization definition, is that it's age-related for either men or women. If you are, particularly women, if you have been trying for a year and you are under 35, you will be regarded as infertile. and you have been trying for 6 months, you will be regarded as, or you should be regarded as infertile. That is the World Health Organization. Infertility is an individualized issue. No, nothing fits all. So the most recent definition and data from World Health Organization collation is that 18%, 1 in 6 of the world population in reproductive age suffers from infertility, inability to conceive or have a child, a living child. And that is 1 in 6. It's pretty common, including every region of the world. And there are even milder variations here and there, but overall it's 1 in 6 or 18%. 18 in every 100 or 1 in 6 or 18%. It's pretty common. If this thing was tuberculosis or COVID or polio or name it Ebola, we'll be panicking. But because infertility does not strike you and kill you, people don't take it extremely seriously. It's not a major concern of the public health planners. So, but generally speaking, it is pretty common. 1 in 6 or 18% of people in reproductive age suffers from infertility.
All right, Dr. Ayodele, thank you so much for joining us once again. And why should the couple stop saying, let's keep trying and actually seek medical help?
What is obvious, just like Dr. Joe mentioned earlier, is that it is age-related. For young couples, where there is no previous suspicion of any abnormality, it is considered that they could keep trying for up to a year following their marriage before they would step out to say, let's seek medical help.
Okay.
On the other hand, for couples of a fairly more advanced age, around 35, it is considered that they should not wait beyond 6 months before they seek medical help. This is because by that time, there are so many other factors that are already militating against their getting pregnant. And for women, couples again, who are about 35, and for which there has been a suspicion of a pathology. For example, a woman who has had irregular periods before the age of 35, a woman who has had to deal with fibroids, or the man has had reason to suspect that there might be problems with sperm, then they should not even wait for those 6 months. As soon as they are married, they should seek medical help. So I've mentioned about 3 categories here.
Yes.
For younger couples, there is an allowance of about a year. For more advanced aged couples, around 35 and above, they should not wait beyond 6 months. But if there has been a suspicion of any form of pathology with their reproductive system, then they should not wait at all.
Dr. Joe, and this question is to you. Is infertility primarily a female issue, as many people in our society still believe, or should both partners be investigated from the beginning?
Thank you again. Worldwide, everywhere there are human beings, there is a tendency to push the woman forward and say, and tell the woman it is your problem. Go look for solutions. You are the cause of our infertility, inability to conceive. But if you look closer, 35% or 1/3, let's say 1/3 of the problem is by the man, and another 35% is by the woman. So the remainder, or 1/3, is shared. If you do a little bit of arithmetic, you will see that you can divide this thing into 2. 50% is from the man and 50% is from the woman. It may also be that it may sometimes be exclusively one party, like asuspermia, for example, might be the man that is really carrying the problem, and the woman may be okay. And it may also be the woman who has block 2 and the rest is okay. So if on the surface of it, on the face of it, 1/3 is by the man, 1/3 is by the woman, they share 1/3. In other words, 50-50%. So in our culture, we tend to push the woman forward. In African context, in Nigeria context, everywhere in Nigeria, that blame the woman, it is your problem. Go sort out your problem. You brought this shame upon us. Meanwhile, it is the man that has no sperm at all or cannot even perform. So it is not true, and it should not be true ever that the woman should be blamed for the family or couple's infertility.
All right. I'd like to ask, how is it possible for a man not to have sperm at all?
It is pretty common, depending on where you are looking. It is a common issue. Asphyxia is common, and there are various reasons why it is common. But what is even commoner though is low sperm count, or what I normally would call low sperm quality. So asphyxia is a relatively a common issue, and it's hard to be individuals quite find it very difficult to address their problems. But recent scientific evidence, though, we define it differently because if you look deeper, as at 2 days ago, I was reading a journal that new techniques might even prove there is sperm somewhere. So our current knowledge needs to be refined and defined as a spermia. But on the current standard by which sperm is measured is a common issue.
All right. It's a common issue. Is it like it happens to some sectors, some regions, some particular men, or it's just random?
Well, it's a random issue, but sometimes it can also be as a sort of failure of the individual or the parents. Take moms, for example. If you do not, you have not vaccinated your child within as soon as possible after birth, MMR, or as the case may be months alone, there's a high risk of the child suffering from mumps, and that can forever kill the ability of the child to have sperm.
Wow.
And we can sit down here from now to tomorrow to list out the causes. So there are other ones like individual causes by themselves, which will include their lifestyle and what they consume and the lifestyle they live, and smoking, marijuana, alcohol, sleeping in baths, and so many other things, exposure to radiation, infection, lifestyle, generally speaking.
Okay.
Self-inflicted issues might also be a major cause.
All right. And this will take me to my next question, and it's to Dr. Ayodele. What are some of the most common causes of infertility you see among Nigerian couples? Like, I understand that some of those things are genetic or particular to Nigerians, or some factors are not. So I want to know, what do you see that is most common or peculiar to Nigerians as a cause of infertility?
Now, let me first make a correction here. Until recently, when we are able to overcome some of the problems of infertility among the male, there's no way it will be genetic, because if it was genetic, that person would not have been born with it. Okay? However, for men who have azoospermia, or rather, oligospermia, azoospermia, and for whatever reason, they do not have the spermatic cord that's supposed to transmit it. Now that we have EC, then for those ones, you might say there's a genetic component. But let me come back to the main question. The common causes, it will depend on whether we're talking about women or men.
Yes, for both.
First and foremost, we know that there is this concept of infertility belts around the world. And if you look at the geography, Nigeria, and by extension, African countries, South American countries, South Asian countries, these are relatively developing countries, and they had the so-called infertility belt. It's like a belt around the globe. And those countries in those areas are mainly developing or undeveloped countries. And the culture, the practice contributes to infections that can damage their tubes. So there is a global factor that plays a prominent role as a cause of infertility in these developing countries. That brings us back also to the fact that while infertility is a global problem, there is a relative difference. The common causes in Africa and Nigeria as opposed to some other parts. In Africa here, most of the problems of infertility are related to damages to the reproductive system, which arises from either untreated or improperly treated infections, damaging the tubes both in men and in women, sexual transmitted infections, and other related issues. Then we also know that even though fibroid is not classified as a cause of infertility, but it plays a major role when it is either very big or when the numbers are many. And we know that fibroids are more prevalent among the blacks and also more serious. So this is also playing a part in infertility. So talking here about the common causes, all over the world, there are women that have issues with their ovulation. And of all hormonal issues that happen with women, the commonest is considered what we call polycystic ovary syndrome, which is now PMOS rather than the PCOS. Now, that one is like an issue that affects ovulation with women. And so it can happen both among the women in Africa and in other places. So there are issues with ovulation, issues with tuber patency, which are related to the issue of infections, and finally, issues with the uterus, which has to do with fibroids. Those are the three common problems that are associated with infertility, especially in our environment. That's for the women. For the men, essentially, there are so many things that could relate to either low sperm count or no sperm count. But when it comes to the issue of treatment, there is a very big difference between low sperm count and no sperm count. But in terms of causation, they are usually related. We only have two major causes when we talk of no sperm count. Some of them are due to obstruction of the tracts. And for those ones, we call them obstructive azoospermia. And some of them are due to metabolic problems. That's in the body system, either the production of sperms or in the process of the hormonal interchanges that control it. So for those ones, it is not obstructive azoospermia. It means that there is no production right at the base within the person. So whether it is azoospermia that is non-obstructive or obstructive or low sperm count, the fact remains that many of them are either due to hormonal problems or infections.
Dr. Joel Akande, thank you so much for your patience. And for Nigerians living in diaspora, what are the major differences they may encounter when seeking fertility treatment compared with treatment in Nigeria?
I was going to cite 3 examples of countries, or even 4 for that matter. The UK, the United States, and Canada. And if we may add South Africa. If you are in diaspora in UK, for example, you face the uphill task of waiting in NHS because of the issues with NHS as we speak. I will give an example. There is a 43-year-old woman that was referred to us and her appointment, remember the age definition we said here, and her appointment was 3 years. The next appointment for her will be 2028.
Wow.
And so that is one. Two, getting an appointment with GP is difficult. And if you are certain age in the UK, you will run into problems. If you have had a child in the UK, there is a very high chance that they will not listen to, they may not listen to you because they will see it that, well, you have had a child, what is the point of you coming to fertility treatment? And you may be denied access to, say, IVF because of your postcode, what is called postcode lottery or fertility treatment. Depending on where you live, you might have difficulties with access to some of these treatments. So you are now left with one option or two options if you are in the UK, and that will mean that you either go to private or you go to you come out of the private settings and travel out. A lot of people travel out to Nigeria, to Turkey, to other parts of Europe, to Greece, to fulfill their fertility expectations. That is for UK. And you should also remember that on the average, depending on where you are in the UK, ordinary ultrasound costs between, if you are in the south, in the very extreme south, you might have between 100 to 400 ultrasound. Just one ultrasound might cost around 100 pounds to 400 pounds. That's a lot of money if you convert that to Naira. Now, and IVF, fertility treatment IUI, on the average, will cost you between 1,500, that is IUI, to about 2,000 or 2,500. IVF might cost you times 3 or times 4 of that. We are talking of about 7,000 pounds to about 20,000 pounds in IVF on the average. Now, take US, for example. I was just checking the data today on IVF treatments in the US. A surrogate will cost around between 65 to 100,000 if you are looking for a surrogacy. Egg donor will cost you around 20 to 30,000, and fertility treatment itself, IVF, will cost you around 20,000. Now, I had some patients in US, and in Georgia, he was located in Georgia, and I have another one as I speak to you in Florida. Ordinarily, to do a scan in US, in New York, is a problem. They couldn't do scan in New York. And in Georgia, they were 6 months waiting to do a scan, ultrasound scan. And in Florida, they will not do it unless there is a doctor recommendation. And for you, if you give the same instruction in Nigeria to a US client, it will cost you around $250 just to convert a prescription to an actionable event in the US. So you have issue of access. And if you have money, like anything, you have money, you will gain access. In Canada, for example, which is also publicly funded, but you might have problems with time, a long time, before you can have access to Canada. So the solution is that if you have money, you will have access. So the solution, therefore, is for people to come to Nigeria. All of this, I've had patients this year, the day they landed in Nigeria, they did their scans, they did their hormones, they did their ultrasound. That very day, they had everything done that will have cost them at least two years to have it done in the UK. So they came from the UK, and that very day, they had all their tests done. We arranged for their HSG, we arranged for the scan, the hormones, infection screen. All of them were doing the same thing. So its access is fast in Nigeria. Yes, and it's cheaper, relatively cheaper in Nigeria. With your what you spend in the UK, you probably do about 2 or 3 of that in Nigeria. So this is what the diasporans face. And of course, finally, is the fact that consultation, I have one now who is in the UK, and the fundamental issue is when can I have a consultation? You can have consultation online. You don't have to come to Nigeria to have your consultation. You can have consultation online. And then if there's any test to be done, you do it in the UK. Treatment is physical and you have to come to Nigeria. That is the challenges and those are the solutions.
All right, thank you so much, Dr. Joel Akande. I recall there was a time when I had a consultation with you, and you took me through the age of the woman and the egg analysis. Can you take that again? I think it will be useful and educative to a lot of people.
Age is very important in fertility, especially female fertility. It's not exclusively age related in female. When a man gets to around 40, his testosterone begins to fall, just like the woman, estrogen begins to fall. Now, when the man gets to 60, you start finding abnormalities in the sperm and may even develop autistic children. Now, the critical thing about women is that at the age of 16 weeks, when they were still in the mother's womb, they had about 6 to 7 million eggs. That is the maximum they will ever have. So the day they were born to this earth, they had 1.5 to 2 million left. At about the time they were starting their period, they had 500,000 left. By the age of 37, they had 25,000 left. By the time they are 40, they have about 5,000. And by the time they are 50, they have 1,000 left. In each month of their cycle, if you like, 1,000 eggs of oocytes, if you like, would die because that is the way it is done. Therefore, what we do to reflect this is to do tests in keeping with their age. That is why we say that age is a critical matter, age cutoff in women. But it's not a straight line because I've seen a 25-year-old, a 28-year-old without eggs whatsoever, nothing. She had reached her failure. She had reached failure. There was no egg. So individuals matter. And as like Dr. Ayodele said, if there had been problems of hormone imbalance issues, any issues, irregular periods, see fertility treatment ASAP. If you do a test like HSG, don't keep it away. But coming back to the eggs, as soon as you are able and desiring to get a child, if after 6 months to 1 year it is not possible, it is time urgently to seek medical help.
Thank you very much, sir. And now, how realistic is the success of IVF, especially for diasporans? You know, a lot of myths around it, like if you do IVF, you have to rest, the plane can shake it, and it will spoil, it will scatter on the way, and all that mythologies around it. Now, there's sometimes an expectation that paying for IVF means getting a baby. Now, how realistic is it, especially if you're on a budget, for you to get this in one go?
I discovered that a lot of times what people believe may not actually agree with science. And the best way to illustrate this, I tell people that we are part of the universe, and scientifically, the earth in itself is moving at a very high speed. Its orbit around the sun. But we that are resident on the earth, we are not feeling that movement because we are part of the whole body. We are all moving at that speed, and so we're not feeling it. So the same way when we transfer embryo into a woman, the moment the embryo is in place, the movement of the woman does not really disturb the embryo. And when we talk about rest, I think rest from stress, rest of the mind is a lot of times more important than even the physical rest that we talk about. The other time, Dr. Joe was talking about somebody arriving the same day, doing his test and all that. When you look at the cost of IVF, There's a natural tendency for the patient, the relative, to try to keep that woman in perpetual rest, thinking that we are trying to protect what we have invested on.
Yes.
But this, scientifically speaking, it does not make a difference, provided the patient is not stressed and the patient is not an athlete, so to say. So I think the issue of trying to be on a bed rest, trying not to do anything throughout the whole period, in fact, I tell people it only adds more stress to the patient. Because the question is, when the patient does IVF and refuses to go to leave the hospital, stays on bed, does everything possible, whereas we know that all over the world, IVF is not 100%. In fact, the majority of people who get pregnant do it more than once. So the idea, therefore, is if the patient has gone out to do a lot of unnecessary things that could even pose as a threat to her, but if peradventure that particular treatment fails, then the question the woman will say is, I did everything. What else do I have to do? And at that point, it becomes more difficult to motivate her to try again than somebody who simply did the most basic things, expects results. Some of them will get pregnant. And for those who do not get pregnant, they are ready to try again than somebody who has gone the extra mile that may actually be unnecessary. I hope you understand me.
I do understand you. Thank you very much. Now, let's go to this question. People talk about miracle solutions. Many desperate couples are targeted by people selling fertility supplements, herbal remedies, and promising miracle babies. What harm can this cause? And how can couples distinguish between evidence-based fertility treatments from potentially misleading ones?
Let me address the issue of supplements. I was attending a conference in the UK last month, and I also was reading a paper yesterday. I can confirm without equivocation that some supplements work, especially for the woman. The Fertility and Sterility Society published a paper yesterday, and they confirmed that as far as supplements and minerals are concerned, it works for some, it works in women to improve fertility outcome, live birth. Men not so. They were not so sure. Now, we live in a peculiar situation in Nigeria, indeed in Africa. A lot of things are not regulated. We are immersed in religious issues, and people kind of are desperate and they escape into religious, delusional issues that they will get an outcome. They are very desperate. There's a desperation there. And as a result, they fall into the hands of people who are out to exploit them.
Mm-hmm.
We have a branch somewhere in the country, I will not name the place for reasons of obvious reasons. They will call us and say, I have 2 million naira. I have 3 million naira. Send me your account. I want a boy and I want a girl. When am I coming to carry my baby? How much? How much? Send me your account. And initially I was wondering that, what are you talking about? Is it for sale? But little did I know that it's a very prevalent, a very common issue in that part of Nigeria. Mm-hmm. And so people are desperate. And we also have issue of pregnancies. And people are, we know once these pregnancy are there, they will tell them, don't do a scan, you should not reveal, you get a baby, this and that. So we have 4 regulations in Nigeria. There is not a single, I tell you, there is not a single law in Nigeria that regulates fertility treatment. Not one. The closest we have is the National Health Act, Section 53 of National Health Act that states that it should not change the body parts. Other than that, there is nothing in the Well, the closest you also have is the Medical and Dental Council of Nigeria that regulates the degree of ethical issues there. So you fall into religion. Our pastors and clerics and imams and babalawo, they are not health matters. False promises. You are not Sarah, you are not Hannah. You promise them keep waiting and until the eggs are finished. So, and you have, by the time you come to the mainstream conventional medicine, you are helpless. You are already helpless. They want you to perform miracles. So, to summarize, we have religious issues, we have cultural issues, we also have the issue of ignorance. And even with evidence, you are telling our people, look, this is the evidence, this is what to do. They will still insist that they are going to pray about it. This is the pastor. Pastor, I should not have operation for fibroid. I will die. You know, you should not touch it. Something will happen. So, and issue of money and fertility treatment anywhere in the world is expensive. Right. Be it UK, be it US, be it Nigeria. Relatively, it's a matter of relativity. So our people are not having that financial endurance. They don't have financial endurance to go through 6 IVFs, 4 IVFs, 3 IVFs. They want it once and successfully. It's not, I mean, evidence, scientific evidence has proven that for you to succeed in IVF, you need more than once. Scientific, I've attended conferences upon conferences that it shows that the more IVF you do, the greater your chance of success. Go and tell that to typical Nigerian who has a limited amount of money. Yeah. That will not be possible, unfortunately. So to summarize, factors of ignorance, finance, culture, and religion are a matter that borders us in particular.
All right. Before I let you go, may I just chip in here that you did say something about the eggs finishing. The eggs finishing completely. I mean, I was almost a victim of my eggs finishing until I went for consultation. Thank God I did. I barely had 2 left.
Okay, yes. Yes.
And that's using me as an example in the global world now. Eggs can actually finish, ladies, like for real. Eggs can finish. And this take me as an example. All right, Dr. Ayodele, can you shed more light on that? Because most people just believe you're a woman, so long your period is still ongoing, you're good.
I think everybody that listened from the beginning of this podcast will remember that Dr. Akande talked about the highest point of the number of eggs is while the person is still intrauterine during pregnancy. From that point onwards, the number of eggs begin to progressively decrease. And when eventually it finishes, is what we call menopause. In actual fact, the release of the egg is tied to the usual monthly menstruation that women see. So any woman that does not have regular menstruation means that she's not menstruating well. But a lot of people who are not menstruating, by extension not ovulating, may still have the eggs stored within the uterus. But as the age goes on, the numbers goes down, and eventually when the eggs finish, that is menopause.
Then you're not talking about, what about, even though the eggs are still there, what about the viability of the eggs? I mean, that's another issue entirely.
About that, because we must first talk about both the quality and the quantity. I'm talking about the quantity first.
Okay.
Now, it is universal that as a woman grows older, the quality also reduces. And this is where there is a lot of confusion, because a lot of people think that the moment they have eggs, it means that it is good quality. That is actually a false assumption. For example, there is this test we do to assess the number of eggs that are remaining. And that test can only tell you whether this woman will still have some eggs to respond if you stimulate them. It does not translate to improved or good quality of eggs. And I tell people that it's just like to compare the egg of an agric fowl, this kind of poultry fowls that are bred. Compare it with the traditional fowls. Both of them are eggs, but somehow we believe and know that they are not of the same character in terms of solidity. So the same way when we talk about quality, the quality of a young woman's egg is obviously much better, irrespective of the age of that particular patient. Am I clear? As a woman gets older, the quality drops. And it gets to a point that where in situations we need to use egg donations, no doctor, no clinician will use the egg of a patient who is advanced, because we know that even if the eggs are there, even if she's still getting pregnant regularly, it is better to go for the eggs of somebody who is much younger, because that is when the quality is still preserved. So as a woman gets older, the quality reduces and the quantity reduces.
So
but it is more clearly defined. And when eventually it is finished, that is menopause.
Thank you so much, sir. All right, I want a final word for you. If I were to take a final word from you, Dr. Ayodele, Akande, what will it be?
Well, let me say this concisely or precisely. There is time for everything under the sun. And know thyself, understand that you have a limited time in this world. We face a challenge which I am finding difficult to address, is the fact that by biological population, there are slightly more women than men. And you might ask me that where are these women, excess women, going to find men? So, and women also need careers. They want careers. So, how are they? And if you look at career path, it is at the time they are just finishing school, that their career are starting, that their reproductive potential is at the highest. So, what do you do? Well, how do you find men? How do you combine with your career? You have got to sit down and analyze your personal life and arrive at what is more important to you, because there is time for everything. The time will close, either you like it or not. But there is something now called egg freezing. You can do egg freezing, but behold, that is the highest percentage success at the end of usage is about 22%, 1 in 5. Now, egg freezing, when you turn it to a baby, ultimately. So it cannot be beaten that you have got to get pregnant within the time frame that biology agrees. And if that is not possible, don't delay. If you are 35 and above, don't delay. Come as soon as possible for assessment and support. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Joel Kandi. It's nice having you on the show. Dr. Ayodele, any last words for us?
My last word for listeners and for anybody who is praying is that for every problem, there's a solution. And like my friend and colleague here has said, time is of essence. The biological clock cannot be reversed. But at whatever point the importance of reproduction is recognized, you must also be true to yourself to follow the advice of experts. A lot of people hear the truth, they know the right path, but they leave the right path and go into the bush. And that will only waste more time, more money, and bring frustration. Go to an expert, follow the advice, and remember, where for whatever reason you cannot get pregnant naturally, IUI is an option, IVF is an option. Now we're talking about surrogacy. Dr. Akande has talked about egg freezing. So for everybody at any particular time, there are options that can be explored. And finally, it's not only women that waste time. men waste so much time that by the time they have money or they are ready for treatment, the woman's eggs are already gone. There are a lot of men who do not have sperm young. Rather than going for treatment, they would delay the woman, they keep on praying and hoping. And by the time they now say, okay, let's go for IVF, we're not talking about having to use donor eggs for the woman. So time is of essence, but there is hope at every stage for any couple. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I like to call doctors agents of hope and touch bearers of big smile. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Thank you so much. It's an honor meeting you. And we hope the next time we call on you, you will oblige us, both of you.
Thank you.
All right,
Thank you.
then.
Good night.
Bye for now. Enjoy the rest of the day. Thank you.
Right for hanging with the diasporans on Fola Yoga Nekila TV. Hanging with the diasporans, a bold and interactive program where the diasporans.
All right, that's it on this week's edition of Hanging Out with Diasporans. We do hope you've learned one or two things. I want to make it a date with us next week, where we'll bring you another interesting personality and topic. Until then, my name is Fola Jogun Akinlami, and this is Hanging Out with Diasporans. God bless you. God bless Nigeria.